When the ship tore apart in orbit, James thought the fire would kill him. Instead, the forest saved him and watched him. The escape pod slammed into the ground with a force that rattled his bones. Metal screamed, glass fractured, and his breath was torn from his lungs. For a long, agonizing moment, James lay sprawled across the cracked console, staring through the shattered viewport at a sky split between two suns, one a pale gold, the other a deep, burning crimson. They cast the alien jungle in eerie hues, making the world look like it was bleeding light. He coughed, the taste of iron thick on his tongue, and forced himself to move. Pain flared along his ribs, but nothing felt broken beyond repair. The emergency beacon blinked faintly on the console, mocking him signal strength almost non-existent. No rescue, not soon. Maybe never. James grabbed what he could, a ration pack, a half-charged pistol, and the battered translator clipped to his belt. Then he stepped out into the forest and froze. The air was heavy, warm, thick with scents he couldn't name sweet, and sharp, like flowers mixed with ozone. Trees rose like titans, their bark glimmering faintly as if dusted with starlight. Vines curled down like serpents, glowing with a cold blue luminescence. Insects flickered through the air like shards of glass, wings catching the twin sunlight. Everything pulsed with life, too vibrant, too quiet. He started walking, boots crunching over soil that shimmered faintly underfoot, his breath loud in his own ears. Hours or maybe minutes passed. His sense of time fractured in the green gold. Gloom. He found a stream and dropped to his knees, drinking deeply, the water cold and sweet. When he finally lifted his head, his heart stopped. Something moved. Not a creature, not exactly. A shadow, too slender to be a beast, too deliberate in motion to be anything but intelligent. It slipped behind a tree, gone in a blink. Then, another shape, and another. His skin prickled as realization sank in. He wasn't alone. He never had been. James straightened slowly, scanning the trees. Silence pressed in like a weight. Then faintly he heard it, a sound soft as wind through leaves. Laughter. He turned sharply, pistol rising, every instinct screaming. The laughter came again, closer this time, feminine, melodic in a way that made his chest tighten with unease. Something brushed his arm, just a leaf, he told himself. Just the wind. But the hairs on his neck stood rigid. Who's there? His voice cracked against the silence. No answer. Only the forest breathing, whispering out. Then they stepped out. A dozen figures emerged from the shadows, silent as ghosts. Women or something. Like women, tall and fierce, their skin gleaming like polished stone in shades of sapphire and emerald, bronze and pearl. Armor of iridescent scales clung to bodies built for both grace and strength. Eyes glowed faintly, catching the light like molten silver. Each carried a weapon, unlike any James had ever seen, curved blades shimmering as if alive. They moved around him in a slow circle, their steps soundless on the forest floor. James tried to steady his breathing, pistol trembling in his grip. For a heartbeat, none spoke. Then one broke the silence. Her voice was low, rich, carrying words that his translator barely caught. Her lips curved in something between a smile and hunger as she whispered, "It's real, a male." James felt the ground vanish beneath him. They weren't just watching him. They'd been waiting. Asterisk, they didn't bind him. They didn't kill him. They only stared hungry, curious, like predators who'd found a rare prey. James stood frozen, the weight of a dozen alien eyes pinning him to the spot. His pistol felt suddenly ridiculous in his hand, a child's toy against these towering women who moved like living weapons. They spoke to each other in low, fluid tones, words curling like smoke. His translator crackled on his belt, struggling to keep up, spitting fragments of meaning into his ear. Male, alive. Prize? Then one of them stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her presence pulling the others back like planets orbiting a sun. Her skin gleamed like burnished copper, traced with faint bioluminescent patterns that pulsed as she moved. Silver-black hair spilled over her shoulders like a river of shadow. Her gaze locked on his with a force that made his breath hitch, not hostile, but claiming. Commanding Dot when she spoke, the translator managed a broken whisper. You. Come. Ours. James swallowed hard, trying to think past the adrenaline hammering in his veins. I don't understand, he said, raising his hand slowly. I'm not here to look. My ship went down. I'm just trying to survive. The leader tilted her head, watching his mouth shape the words as if memorizing them. Then, with a single gesture, she signaled 2 warriors forward. They took his pistol gently, almost reverently, and slipped it away. No malice, just inevitability. Come, the leader said again, this time with eerie clarity. She reached out and touched his chest lightly, almost curious before turning and walking deeper into the jungle without looking back. The others followed. In a ripple of color and motion, their bodies blending with the glow of the forest. One lingered behind, flashing a sharp smile at James before urging him forward. He hesitated, heart pounding, then started walking. The path wound through towering trees, roots like the bones of titans breaking the earth. Strange flowers glowed faintly in the dusk, releasing scents that made his head swim. Every now and then, James caught snatches of laughter behind him, soft, breathy, as though they found him amusing. His mind reeled with questions. Who were they? Why weren't they killing him? And why did they look at him like that? After what felt like an eternity, the trees opened into a clearing, and James stopped dead. A village sprawled before him, woven from living wood and glowing. Vines, homes suspended like lanterns between the trunks. Fires burned in great stone bowls, their light casting molten gold across the gathered crowd. Dozens more women appeared, stepping from shadows, their voices rising in a low, haunting chorus that sent chills crawling up his spine. Every face turned toward him, every pair of glowing eyes fixed on the human who had walked into their world. The leader Saraya, as he would later learn, raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Her voice rang clear in the night air, a command, a proclamation. The translator lagged, words spilling into his ear seconds later. The spirits have answered. He is here, the last chance. James frowned. Last chance for what? His voice sounded small, swallowed by the jungle. No one answered. Instead, Saraya stepped close, so close he felt her heat, smelled something wild and sweet on her skin, and spoke again, low enough for only him to hear. Stay, she said. Belong. Before he could reply, a ripple of sound passed through. The crowd. Laughter again, but this time tinged with something else, anticipation. James felt his stomach knot as the translator caught one more word, spoken over and over, a single syllable echoing through the clearing. Claim. They led him into the heart of the camp, past fires and curious faces, toward a raised platform draped in silk-like fabric, shimmering with dew. At its center stood a carved seat-no, a throne fashioned from living roots and polished to a gleam. Saraya gestured for him to sit. James hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The women closed in. Like a tide, their eyes bright, their smiles sharp. He sat. The laughter swelled, soft and seductive, curling through the humid night. And for the first time since he crashed, James understood something with bone-deep certainty. They hadn't just found him. They had been waiting. Asterisk. The nights were the worst, when the fires burned low and shadows danced across the alien camp, whispering. Secrets James couldn't understand. That's when they came to him. He lay on the strange bed they'd given him, a platform of woven roots draped with soft, glowing moss that radiated gentle heat. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Outside, the forest sang with strange calls, clicks, trills, and deep-throated hums that resonated in his bones. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine Earth, the blue of the oceans, the weightless hum of an engine. Anything but this surreal prison dressed like paradise. A soft sound broke the quiet. Not the wind, footsteps, slow, deliberate, too light. To be anything but one of them. James opened his eyes. She stood just inside the doorway, the firelight kissing her bronze skin until it looked molten. Her armor was gone, replaced by a cascade of iridescent cloth that shimmered with every breath she took. Her eyes, those molten silver eyes, watched him with an intensity that froze him in place. James, she said, his name spoken in her voice was a sin-made sound. The translator barely needed to help now. She'd learned quickly. Her mouth curved in something like a smile, but it wasn't innocent. It was hunger wrapped in grace. What do you want? His voice came out rough, too loud in the silence. She tilted her head, stepping closer. My turn, she whispered, asterisk. James felt his heart slam against his ribs. Your what? My turn. She said it slowly, savoring each syllable, as if tasting the words. Her hand reached out, fingertips grazing the edge of his blanket. Heat sparked through him like a live wire. He caught her wrist gently, his pulse racing. Wait, stop, I don't. He searched for words, something that made sense in this madness. I'm not here for that. Confusion flickered across her face, quickly drowned by amusement. She leaned in, close enough that her breath ghosted over his cheek, warm and sweet like crushed flowers. You are here, she murmured. Because Spirit sent you. Because we need. Her gaze dropped, sweeping over him in a way that made his skin burn. Because you are last hope. James swallowed hard, his grip trembling. Hope for what? Her expression softened just a fraction. For life. She pressed her free hand against her stomach, fingers splayed, then pointed to the camp outside. No births, no sons, no future. Her voice thickened, heavy with something he couldn't name. Desperation, maybe. You changed that. The truth hit like a blow. This wasn't just lust. This was survival. They wanted him because he was. A seed, a key to their continuation. James let go of her wrist slowly. You think I'm a solution? His laugh cracked, sharp and bitter. Lady, I'm just trying to live through the night. The alien woman blinked, then smiled, a slow, dangerous curl of lips. Then Lev, she whispered, stepping back with the grace of a predator retreating by choice, not defeat. But no, others wait. Many want turn. Her words slithered into his thoughts as she slipped into the shadows, vanishing like smoke. James sat rigid, heart pounding, as the camp outside murmured like a restless sea. Through the thin walls, laughter drifted low, melodic, layered with expectation. And beneath it, The translator whispered the same word again and again, a drumbeat in his skull. Claim. Claim. He stared at the flickering light, feeling the walls close in. It wasn't a question of if they'd come for him again. It was. When? And deep down, in a place he didn't want to acknowledge, James realized something far worse. Part of him wanted them to. It wasn't a dance. It was war with him as the prize. James woke to the sound of drums. Low at first, like the heartbeat of the forest, then louder, pounding through the clearing until it shook his bones. He stumbled out of the woven shelter, blinking against the glow of twin suns breaking through the canopy. The camp had changed overnight. Fires burned in great stone circles. Warriors gathered in a wide ring, their skin gleaming with war paint that shimmered like liquid metal. Every eye turned toward him. The laughter that had haunted him these last nights was gone. This wasn't playful. It was primal. A figure stepped. Forward Saraya. Towering lethal, her copper-toned skin streaked in crimson pigment that slashed across her jaw and throat. Her eyes found his, bright as molten steel. Behind her, the others watched in tense silence, blades strapped to their backs, muscles coiled like springs. James, she said. His name cut the air like a blade. You come. He didn't move. What's going on? His voice sounded thin, swallowed by the thrum of drums. Saraya strode toward him, her steps measured, predatory. The crowd parted around her like water breaking around a rock. She stopped inches away, close enough that the heat of her body radiated against his skin. When she spoke, the translator lagged behind her words like a shadow, struggling to keep pace. Today, we decide, she said softly, who holds claim. The words slammed into him like a physical blow. He shook his head. What do you mean, claim? I'm not. Silence. She didn't raise her voice, but the command in it froze his tongue. Her eyes softened, not with mercy, but with something worse. Certainty. You are last hope, James. Our blood. Weak, our line. Ending. You carry seed of future. The words felt unreal, even as the translator burned them into his mind. Last hope, seed, future. Before he could speak, a horn blared, sharp and cruel. The ring of warriors shifted, forming two opposing lines. Each woman unsheathed her weapon, curved blade forged from black metal that drank the light. They didn't look at him now. They looked at each other. The translator spat one final word into his ear. Challenge. Wait, James said, panic clawing up his throat. What is this? You're going to fight over me? Saraya's gaze never wavered. Fight for you. Her voice was a blade wrapped in silk. To win right. One winner, one mate. No, James whispered. No, you can't, but it was already happening. Two women lunged, colliding in a blur of steel and muscle. Sparks exploded as blades clashed, bodies twisting with inhuman speed. The crowd roared, voices rising in a chant that shook the trees. James stumbled back, heart hammering, as the circle became a storm of blood and motion. One fell. Another stepped forward. Then another. The fights rolled on, brutal and unrelenting, until the earth drank crimson. And through it all, Saraya waited, standing at the edge like a shadow carved from fire and iron. At last, she moved. The final challenger snarled, a warrior with skin like midnight and hair white as snow. They circled, eyes locked, blades humming with the promise of death. Then Saraya struck. The duel was a storm of speed and fury, too fast for James to follow. When it ended, silence crashed down like a wave. Saraya stood over the fallen warrior, her blade dripping scarlet. Her chest rose and fell with steady power, not a trace of weakness in her stance. She turned slowly, her gaze finding James through the smoke and sunlight. The crowd erupted, a chorus of savage triumph. Saraya walked toward him, each step echoing like a drumbeat inside his skull. When she stopped before him, the world seemed to shrink to the space between them. Her hand rose stained with blood, fierce and beautiful, all at once, and cupped his jaw with a gentleness that stole his breath. "Now," she whispered, voice like molten iron and velvet, "you're mine." James stared at her, his pulse screaming, the reality crashing in like fire. This wasn't a request. It was law. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, the disbelief, something dangerous stirred. Because when she said it, a part of him didn't want to run. Asterisk, the clearing lay quiet now, the scent of blood mingling with the sweet electric perfume of the alien forest. Fires burned low in the stone bowls, their flames licking shadows across Saraya's face as she led James toward a structure deeper in the camp. Her grip on his wrist was firm, not cruel, but final. The murmurs of the tribe followed them like whispers riding the wind, soft laughter, words his translator didn't fully catch. One word repeated again and again, curling into his bones like heat. Claim. James's legs moved because they had to, not because he wanted them to. His mind was chaos, rage, disbelief, and something darker throttling beneath it all, something he didn't want to name. Every step toward that towering hut, carved into the roots of an ancient tree, felt like crossing a line he could never return from. The inside was dim, lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent vines. The air shimmered faintly with heat, heavy with a scent that was part floral, part feral. Saraya released his wrist only when the doorway sealed behind them with a sigh. The world outside fell away, leaving only silence, and her dot chain spun on her, words spilling before fear could choke them. "You can't just decide this. I'm not some sung prize to be fought over." His voice cracked against the close walls. "I didn't ask for this." "I didn't." Saraya moved before he could finish, closing the space between them in a single step. Her hand came up, not to strike, but to touch his face with surprising gentleness. He froze, her skin hot. Against his cheek, her scent wrapping around him like smoke. "You think I want this?" she murmured. Her voice, always edged like a blade, now carried a crack thin, almost invisible, but real. "I fight because I must, because without you, we die." Her words struck harder than any blade. James stared at her, his breath shallow. "What are you saying?" Saraya's hand fell slowly, fingers trailing like fire. She turned away, shoulders rigid, and walked toward a carved basin in the corner. Water gleamed like liquid silver inside it. She dipped her hands, the muscles in her back tight beneath scars that told a story he didn't know. "Our line ends," she said finally, voice low. "For generations, no sons. No children strong enough to live. The forest once sang with life, now it mourns." She faced him again, water dripping from her fingers like tears. "You are hope, not just for me, for all." James felt the air leave his lungs in a slow, crushing exhale. The pieces fell into place, the hunger in their eyes, the laughter like knives, the fights that painted the ground red. They weren't predators circling prey. They were a dying people clawing at survival. Still, the weight of it suffocated him. "And if I refuse?" he asked, the words dry, bitter. Saraya stepped close again, so near he could see the faint shimmer of bioluminescent markings beneath her skin, glowing in sync with her pulse. Her gaze locked on his, fierce and unyielding. "Then you are free," she said softly, "free to walk into forest. Alone, where night beasts smell blood. And no, stars will hear you scream." James, for the first time since the crash, James saw something raw behind her fire fear, buried deep, but burning all the same. It cut through him sharper than the threat of death ever could. He swallowed hard. And if I do this? Soraya's lips curved, not in triumph, but in something like relief. Then tribe lives, she breathed. Her hand slid down, fingers curling around his wrist, not dragging this time, but holding, as if asking rather than commanding the silence between them. Stretched, heavy and alive, as the drums outside faded to nothing. James stood on the edge of a decision he never imagined, the weight of an entire people pressing down on his shoulders. Duty or desire? Survival or morality? He didn't know any more where one ended and the other began. Finally, he exhaled and nodded once. Something in Soraya broke then, a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob. Her forehead touched his for the briefest moment, heat searing through the space between them like a brand. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than moonlight. Then tonight, she whispered, we begin. Outside, the forest sighed under the twin suns. But before James could say another word, a horn split the air sharp, savage, echoing through the trees like a promise of blood. Soraya's head snapped up, her body going rigid. The warmth vanished from her eyes, replaced by steel. She spun toward the doorway, her voice like a blade drawn from its sheath. They come, she hissed. James's gut turned cold. Who? Soraya didn't look back as the door hissed open and the night poured in, full of shadows and war drums. Another tribe, she said. They come for you. Asterisk, the horn's echo hadn't even died before the night erupted into chaos. Drums thundered beyond the tree line, faster and harder than before war drums. Shadows flickered between the glowing vines, silhouettes slipping through the mist like wraiths. James's pulse slammed against his ribs, his body frozen for half a breath before instinct ripped him into motion. He grabbed his half-charged pistol from the woven platform and turned just as Soraya burst through the doorway. Her blade was already in her hand, slick and black like a sliver of night. Her face was carved from stone. No fear, no hesitation, only fire. Stay close, she snapped. No translator needed. James followed her into the clearing and into hell. Figures poured from the forest, moving with lethal grace, their skin shades of obsidian and deep green. Another tribe, armor of bone and scaled leather, glinted in the firelight, their war cries slicing through the air like razors. Blades clashed, sparks erupting as Soraya's warriors met them in a storm of steel and fury. James barely had time to aim before one of the newcomers lunged at him, a blur of motion, blade raised high. He fired. The plasma round caught her shoulder, spinning her into the dirt. For a split second, shock tore through him. He'd never killed a woman before. But there was no time for guilt because another came at him. He ducked, the curved blade whistling over his head. He slammed the pistol into her ribs, felt bone crack, then shot point blank. The smell of scorched flesh curled through the night. His stomach lurched, bile rising, but his hands kept moving. Survival didn't wait for morality. Through the chaos, he saw Soraya. She was everywhere, at once a crimson phantom carving a path through the enemy, her blade singing death in a dozen strokes. But even she couldn't stop what came next. A roar split the air, shaking the trees. The enemy parted as a giant stepped forward, a war leader clad in spiked armor, his weapon a two-handed cleaver that glowed with molten light. He moved like an avalanche, cutting down Soraya's fighters in brutal arcs, and his eyes burning. Gold locked on James. He knew what this was. He wasn't just a man. He was the prize. James raised his pistol, but the charge warning blinked red empty. Damn it! He spat, scrambling back as the giant closed in. Then Soraya was there. She slammed into the warlord with a scream. her blade ringing against his cleaver. Sparks flared. The ground trembled under their clash. James watched, helpless, as they fought a tempest of steel and blood, neither giving an inch. And then Saraya faltered. Just for a breath, just enough for the cleaver to slash across her side. Blood, dark and shimmering, spilled down her armor. No! James roared. Something primal tore through him, a surge of fury so raw it burned. He grabbed the fallen warrior's blade, heavy and alien in his grip, and charged. The warlord turned too late. James drove the blade into his side with a roar, feeling flesh tear, bone crack. The giant bellowed, staggering, and Saraya struck her, blade driving deep into his throat. The warlord crashed to the ground. Silence rippled through the clearing, then shattered as the enemy broke and fled into the trees. It was over. James dropped the blade, chest heaving, sweat and blood streaking. His skin. Saraya stumbled, and he caught her, her weight shocking against him, hot, trembling, alive. Her blood smeared his hands like war paint. "You're hurt," he rasped. She laughed, low, bitter, beautiful. "Not dead." Her eyes, glowing, faintly in the firelight, locked on his. "Because of you." He wanted to say something, anything, but the words froze when her hand cupped his jaw again, slick with her blood. "Now," she whispered, voice fraying at the edges, "you understand. You fight for us. You kill for us. You belong." James swallowed hard, his heart a storm. "Why?" he choked. "Why me? Why here?" Saraya's gaze didn't waver. And then finally, the truth fell from her lips like a blade. "We called you." The world tilted. "What?" Her voice was soft now, deadly, contender all at once. "Your ship did not fall by chance. We sent the signal. Lured you. Because without you, we end." James stared at her, the weight of her confession crushing the air from his lungs. Every moment replayed in his mind. The crash, the laughter in the dark, the word they whispered like a prayer. "Claim. You lied," he said, his voice hollow. Saraya's fingers tightened on his face, her eyes shimmering with something raw, something that might have been guilt. "Or love. I lied," she breathed, "to save my people. But when I said you were mine," her forehead touched his, their breaths tangling in the heat of blood and fire, "I meant it." Behind them, the drums began again, slow, steady, echoing into the endless night. And in that sound, James heard the truth. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. *The end.